I'm Eden. Houseplants, yay! Alright, so I kind of had this set up where first we just talk about the basic ones, their light requirements and watering needs, because some of them don't need water ever and some need a lot. So I have like a 1 to 10 scale, and so basically, you know, you've got the highlight ones that they're hard to keep as houseplants because it's more they want to be outside. And honestly, even this guy, he's an outside plant, full shade. Succulents are an outside full sun plant. Like, they'll never stay alive in your house year round. But then there are the lower lights like peace lilies, the ZZ plant, and the Aglaonema. Those work really well inside. I find cacti work really well inside and don't have a lot of water. So, you know the basic north, south, east, west as far as windows go in your house. And south and west are going to have the most. North has almost none. East gets morning. So the ones that, you know, want the more direct full sunlight, you're going to want at least in a southwest. The succulents through the winter, cacti through the winter want to be southwest facing. Things like this, I have this growing in my room that has no actual window. It's just an overhead light and it's thriving. Same with the ZZ plant. There's the one that is hanging there, Cebu Blue. He's almost no real light other than just overhead lighting. He'd work in anywhere like a kitchen or something that's just no windows. Pothos is another one that's, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, it wants some light, but if it's just a bright room, it'll work really well. As far as watering, most of them are pretty normal. This peace lilies, you know, they'll start to wilt if you don't water them, and you water them and they perk right back up. And this guy actually was dead wilted yesterday, and I watered him and thriving. This one, oh, he's another one that doesn't need much light at all. The spider plant, he, you know, you can put him anywhere, pull off his little babies and put them places to fill it up. Some plants are weird with watering, like you can't water that enough. The maidenhair fern, and it doesn't just want water in the soil, it wants you to like mist it as well, or have it in high humidity. Like this, you never have to water. I use this as far as keeping the houseplants in there, the ferns and things. You can twist this to make it mist or a full stream. It's really easy to just walk around and spot water spot water, but I hope I don't spray you. Oh, well, I've used this one a bit. I think I was just going to move on to common pests that you'll find. And the first one is mealybugs. And I actually found this inside with mealybugs. And I'm going to pull that guy out. Come here, you. Come on. There. All right. So you can kind of see. I'll hand this across to you. Yeah. Those are the mealybugs. And there's, yeah, I have people come in a lot and they're like, oh, there's spots all over my houseplants. And it's, you know, is it which spots? And so if it's the white cottony ones, the mother will make this cotton and lay her eggs in it. And so by the time you get to that, if it's a small plant, like if you just have a little thing like this that has it, you can go over with rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip and clean it out. And then you're gonna probably want to change the soil too, because their little larvae get down into the soil. And so you just rinse all the soil off and repot it, go over it with rubbing alcohol, or easier, you can just spray it, and this will get rid of any kind of bugs, mites, or fungus that are on there. And like aphids and scale are another one that you'll get, and they make honeydew like when they bathroom, and it gets sticky and it can turn into like black sooty mold. So if you notice there's like black speckling on the stem, it's probably that you have either, it's one of the scale sapsuckers, is the mealybugs, the scale, and the aphids. And those, you're really going to want to drench the whole thing in either like a neem or insecticidal soap, or I like to take the neem and add Dawn soap to it, shake it up, and use that as just a double. But this one's kind of all of that in one. This poor blessed guy also has spider mites. And so you'll notice the leaves kind of curl up, and sometimes you'll see webbing, like teensy little spider webbing in there. And if you take a white piece of paper under the leaf and just tap it, little black specks will fall off, and if you watch them, they move. And that, take it outside, far away from everything, and just drench it in a miticide, or the neem and soap oil mix works really well to get rid of those. But after you do that, give it about 24 hours and then heavy hose it down, and you might treat it a second time, just because those things, they're so small, there's everywhere that they could hide in there, and they'll quickly destroy your plant. And you'll notice speckling on the leaves where, like, if you hold it up, you can see through it almost. And fungus gnats, that's a really bad one for houseplants. I don't know if I'll be sitting there with a drink and suddenly there's a fly in it. You know, they get all over. You'll notice them buzzing around. This is the greatest stuff ever. All you do is sprinkle this on the top of the soil and water it in, and it'll get rid of all of their larvae in the soil, so you don't even have to repot. Scale is, I have pictures here. Scale is like this, where it just looks like, it doesn't even look like a bug. It just looks like weird blisters or something on the side of your plants. I notice it a lot on like rubber trees, or fiddle leaf figs get it, the ones with the more woody stem. As far as these, once they've already hit this stage, it's so hard to penetrate the waxy coating with any kind of spray that you kind of have to scrape them off. And then you use the insecticidal soap heavy on there and wipe them down and try and get as much as you can. They also cause the black city mold, so this is a good one to also use if it's already progressed to the moldy stage. Those are really like the common pests I find on the houseplants. I don't really notice a lot of other things. Sometimes, you know, you take your plants outside in the spring when it's nice, and you'll bring them back in, and they'll get like centipedes or roly-polies and stuff up in the bottom. That's why I brought this. This is really great. Again, you just kind of sprinkle it on the top, water it in. It'll get rid of anything down at the bottom. Also, they're mostly at the bottom or on the outside of the root ball. So if you take a tray or like a little, like how you would water from the bottom, fill that with water and sit it in there, and that'll help get the ones at the very bottom. I also have other common problems. A big one is if your plant starts stretching, where the leaves are distanced further apart than they were. It looks just really long and awkward. It's not enough sun. It just needs more sun. And this is what I'm talking about with these not being indoor plants. We have this directly under a plant light in there, and he's still doing it. They just want very full all day hard sun. Curling leaves, that can actually be a multitude of things. It could be lack of water or inconsistent watering. It could be a fungus caused by bugs. Spider mites is the one I usually notice it on, is they're curling up from that. And then the inconsistent watering is not like every Tuesday at 10 a.m., but, you know, water it when it's about the same level of dry. And sometimes that'll be 3 days later, depending on the heat and dryness of your house. Sometimes it's 2 months later. Or like I've found these guys, sometimes it looks like it needs water once a month. Sometimes I had 8 months between waterings. Like their roots are like potatoes. They don't have like stringy roots. They have like a potato ball that they grow out of, and it absorbs all the water out of the soil, and then they just live on that. But if you overwater, then that thing just mushes and they go out. But so with those, I tend to stick my finger in and try and feel it. If it wrinkles up a little bit or feels a little wrinkly, it probably needs water. Yellowing leaves, I mean, mostly yellow leaves can be normal. If it's just a few of them, it's kind of just the circle of life. But if there's a lot of them, it's usually an overwatering or a not enough amount of light. Brown leaf tips. I also have pictures. I made pictures. But the brown leaf tips like this, usually inconsistent watering. Again, just check and try and keep watering it. Some of the ones that are easier don't do that, but the fiddle leaf figs and rubber trees and stuff, I noticed they do it a lot. Or the big leafy, like this. He's doing it, so that's my bad, inconsistent watering. Oh, another big thing is root rot. So the yellowing leaves could indicate the beginnings of root rot. And if you pull it out and the roots are like dark brown and spongy and like smushy, you can pretty much tell. The only way to get rid of it once it's got to that point is you would take the whole roots and then get sterilized scissors, because it can spread really easily, and cut off any of the brown rotting roots, and then trim the plant up really well to where it's just got its main, keep some big leaves on there, but take any of the unnecessary looking ones off so it doesn't struggle as much coming back with the smaller roots. And then completely bleach the pot it was in and new potting soil entirely, and it can come back from it. But one that it won't come back, and I find it with the succulents and peperomias a lot, is soft rot. It's like it'll get a wound somehow. It'll just get a little wound and the bacteria will get into that stem, and it just slowly starts turning everything like black along the stem, and then you'll notice it just falls over and rots. And with this, like with succulents, you could take these leaves and propagate those, but there's no saving that stem. Like once it's soft rotted, there's nothing you can do. If you catch it where it just got the wound before it's actually starting to turn black, you can treat it with like a hydrogen peroxide or a fungicide, just with a Q-tip over the little wound, and that can help prevent the going into full soft rot. Another one, mostly with ficus, any kind of ficus plant you get, if they are dropping their leaves constantly, either they're not happy where they are, or you just bought it and it's still in shock because they don't want to be moved. There are a lot of plants that they're really sensitive to just being moved from like one side of the kitchen to the other. And the ficus are like, if you accidentally kick it with your foot 2 inches, it panics. It's like, I did not want to go there, and it'll lose all its leaves. Could also just be a light issue. We had some ficus inside that they were losing their leaves nonstop. I didn't know what to do. We brought them outside and now they're thriving. That was just a light issue and they were happy to have moved. This is less likely to happen indoors, but if the leaves start turning really white, like on something like this, if they start turning really, really white and pale, that's too much light. They're getting like almost a sunburn where it's sun bleaching them. So that's what that would look like, is sun scorch. Wilting leaves, that's a common issue, but that's could be anything from the root rot to you just need to water it. It's a lot of times if you have an issue, you can just take a picture of it and bring it in here, and most of us will know the answer and what to treat it with. Oh, I mean, with the yellowing leaves, another thing could be it's sapped all the nutrients out of the soil, because houseplants can't get that from the ground like outdoor plants, and so you have to kind of constantly be fertilizing them. And they're usually planted in a medium that's, there's a word for it, where it's been like powered up and it's already fertilized. So the first 2 months or so that you have a houseplant, you really don't have to, but then after that you want to kind of get into a consistent every other watering at least. Give it a little fertilizer. I prefer the liquid fertilizer like the Arbor. It's just easier to control how much you're giving it, water it down in there and be done with it. There are like slow release granules that are great though, because those you don't have to do every other watering. You just put them in and they last up to like sometimes 6 months. You don't have to even think about it again. Oh, with the wilting leaves, soil can become hydrophobic, where it doesn't matter how much you water it, it's not going to hold the water. It's just going to run out and be dry again, and that's just from having sucked up the nutrients for too long. And so that you just repot into different potting soil. There are some plants that they don't want extra space. They want to be kept in their tight little spot and keep their cozy roots. And so those are hard when they start becoming hydrophobic. But this guy, when you turn it on that full stream, that can water all around and get those little chunks of like mulch and bits that are in there that still can hold water. That can help with that. Spotted leaves. So like this can be multiple things, from spider mites or bugs to a fungus. Another big one is bad air circulation. Like if it's just in an area with too much humidity, roses get it really bad when they're too humid. You can take a hair dryer on the cold setting, dry in between there. If you need to, move it to an area where there's a fan and just better circulation. And that can help with a lot of the fungus buildup and bacterial build up too, just because they want that moisture and humidity, and if they don't have it, they won't thrive. Powdery mildew is another bad one that it's just due to too much moisture. When you're watering, you want to try and water at the base. I mean, I take it as standard practice across all houseplants is not to water on the leaves, except for the ferns. The ferns, even the staghorn fern, wants to be watered on this. The bird's nest fern there actually wants you to water it down into its little nest. So, but for the most part, you want to keep it off the leaves because there's bacteria in water that would just burn little holes, spread to it. When you have the beginnings of soft rot, any kind of like undistilled water, it can just put bacteria in there and rot them. Oh, when I was talking about root rot, and you cut all the roots off and you have it all rinsed off, soak that in a fungicide first before replanting. I skipped that. That's a very important step. You take it, just dunk it in fungicide, shake it off, and then repot. That helps. There's some great, this is when we're talking about watering, if you don't want to have to think about it, this is great because it's a terracotta bottom, and so it slowly leaches the water out, and you just put a wine bottle in the top. There's a prettier one if you don't want wine bottles in your plants. So sometimes you'll over fertilize. Yes, the brown leaf tips. Okay, I knew I was losing it. So that can also be burned from over fertilizing, and it's usually a buildup of salts in the soil, and things like using tap water that puts salts in the soil. And once it gets so much, it starts burning the roots to where their little tips burn off. So this stuff actually breaks down the salts in the soil. If you've over fertilized, it's really great to just water it in, breaks that stuff up so that it can more effectively Sledgehammer by Fox Farm. Potting soil is another important thing because depending on what you have, you want the moisture holding qualities. So cactus, you don't want it to sit there and hold water on that. So that's a really loose, aerated soil. But if you get, something like this that wants water constantly, you're going to want a heavier potting soil that holds the moisture in a lot better so that you don't have to repot as often. They also sometimes adjust the fertilizer in there for them. Like we have one for African violets, one for orchids, and it just is kind of specific to that plant's needs. But as far as fertilizing, one thing I did kind of want to talk about is the little 3 numbers on the front. So as far as houseplants go, most of the time you're not buying them for flowers. Usually there's a few that you can get for flowers, but for the most part you're going to want the first number and the last number to be your highest numbers for houseplants, because it's the nitrogen is the first one. That's for their leaves, foliar growth. Potassium is the third number. It's for stronger root systems. And so those are the 2 that you look for. If you have one like an African violet, I would go with a more specialized African violet fertilizer. But as far as fertilizing your houseplants, you just want the first number and the last number to be the highest numbers. And read the back for instructions. She asked, if you can use carrot juice. It's a houseplant fertilizer. And yes, you can. I've heard it smells. I mean, they might all smell. I can't smell, so not an issue for me. But some people don't want like liquid fish in their house. That's my mom. She won't liquid fish anything in her house. There's kind of generalize as far as fertilizing them. You don't have to get a specific one, especially for just the basic leafy ones. But for the most part, I just use anything with a nitrogen in it, because as long as you're watering regularly and checking your roots, you should be okay. Sometimes I'll throw a little root fertilizer, something with the potassium in there. Banana peels are good. But the nitrogen is the biggest thing, so that you don't lose all the bottom leaves while they're trying to put out the new. These are one that we had in our house for a long time, and we had them, our living room, north facing, very dark all the time, and we kept these going in huge pots in there for so long, and just maybe once a month I would take it into our kitchen, which has light, water it, and let it hang out in there for 24 hours, and it was perfectly fine. So those are a really great low light plant. Any of the ferns are good low light plants if you can keep the humidity up. Some of these have just done so well without much. Like this guy in my room is taken off. I don't even look at him most of the time. He's just there. Cacti, if you have a really bright, hot, dry area, cacti do well. We have so many cacti in our house, and they're just there living for years, and I don't water them.